And I think the fact that this damage happened within the time span of a week, only repeated attacks morning after morning of these missile strikes targeting power production facilities, thermal power plants, nuclear power plants. This has really brought the electric infrastructure, power infrastructure in Ukraine to its knees. Officials are asking people to basically conserve electricity, to use less electricity, especially at peak hours, and to prepare for blackouts. We're already hearing reports about blackouts here in parts of the capital, especially on the left bank. There are complete cities that are completely blacked out right now, like Zhytomyr, where 260,000 people live, is completely without electricity or water after this morning's attacks. So this is turning into a very deadly and a very effective strategy for Russia. And the bad news here is that the weapons that Russia has been relying on over the last several days to carry out these attacks are these kamikaze drones. It's not clear how many they have, and they're cheap to make, really. They only cost $20,000 a piece, and it's not clear how many they've actually purchased or received. And it's not clear how long Russia can keep up this tempo of targeting this critical infrastructure around the country with these attacks from a long distance. And at the same time, Ukrainians know that the winter is coming, as you mentioned, and there's reports here in the capital and other places that people are looking for generators and other kinds of things to use to cook and stay warm, like gas burners. So people are definitely tense, and they're worried about what might come next. Definitely a somber mood, even though spirits are high in general. You can see here in the capital, people are going to work. We've seen soldiers walking around this morning. Things are moving forward, and the authorities here say they're going to try and restore whatever's been damaged as soon as they can. But the reality is that those attacks, those kamikaze drone attacks, continue to target critical infrastructure across the country. As Kiev was being hit, Sumy was also hit. In Sumy, there was an electricity power station that was destroyed and left people sleeping last night without electricity. In Rivne, authorities reported electricity infrastructure being damaged and people remaining without electricity. So this issue is an ongoing issue, and it's very critical for Ukrainians, they say, because they need to have this electricity, they need to have other critical services like water, they need their roads working so that they can continue this war effort to push forward on the front lines. And this is what Ukrainians are saying. Ukrainian officials are saying that Russia is resorting to using these kinds of weapons because they're desperate. They're trying to cover up their inability to move forward on the front lines and the Ukrainian gains against them in Ukrainian territory. So Ukrainian officials say they need more weapons, they need the advanced weapons that they require to stop these kinds of attacks, and they want the international community to put more pressure on Russia, and even Iran now calling for sanctions. The U.S. announced that they were thinking about putting sanctions on Iran for providing these kinds of weapons. But definitely things are tense, but the Ukrainians are taking this very seriously, and they say they're not going to stop fighting. The first impacts happened early in the morning, around between 6 and 6:30. There were several loud explosions heard around the city. On our way to this particular location, which was impacted in that first round of strikes, there was another explosion. And since we've been here, as rescue workers are working behind me, there have been some calls for people to take shelter while they gathered and watched this rescue operation going on. There are no confirmations about casualties, but we did see rescue workers actually take people out from this area. I'm going to step away and let you look and see what's going on here. This street is a residential street. There were at least 2 buildings affected by the impacts. There's still smoke bellowing out of one of the buildings on the right here. You can see that smoke kind of coming out of there, and you can also hear sounds of rescue workers going through rubble, trying to reach people. We have seen some families get out uninjured. It seems like they're staying in these sky-rise kind of buildings, these large, tall apartment buildings next door. We're here since the impacts, just after the impacts happened. And since then, this smoke hasn't stopped. The entire area has this very thick smoke covering it. There's no official confirmation about casualties, as I mentioned. But what officials are saying is that this particular neighborhood isn't wasn't the only one that was attacked this morning in Kiev, and they believe that it was Iranian-made Shahed drones that were used to carry out this attack. Now, these Shahed drones have been in the headlines for the last several days. There's also been some Western intelligence confirmation that Iran is going to be sending more of these drones, as well as other short and medium-range missiles. So this is very concerning for Ukrainian officials.